Wait a minute, I got one more here. I'm not fully wired yet. Somebody has to tell me how to get out of this too when I'm done. I'm entangled already. Different ways. Okay. One more?
This is for the temple.
Only one more.
Yeah, because this is the mic. Yes.
This is for
the speakers.
upstairs.
Everyone
Everyone.
in the building.
The bathroom too. No? Okay, you guys taking the shower. Hurry up. So we'll do one bhajan. No, actually not a bhajan. Can be also understood as a bhajan. This particular bhajan is very pleasing to Lord Chaitanya. And it's also called the Mahamantra. And we sing it part of our morning program sometimes. It's easy, I think you know, probably all of you know it. I can't remember the title of it. I know the words. Hare Hare Nama Krishna Yadavaya Nama Hare 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 Krishna Mahamantra ki This thing keeps cutting out.
So you just change the battery, it should be fine now. Hopefully. Hare Krishna, dear devotees.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Let's give almost one more year. Yeah. No, one more last year. So I want to do a little introduction of Maharaj. Most of the people doesn't know. Maharaj was the temple president in Columbus. 1990, 1991. Maharaj was here. Kamgir Mataji was around. So he was temple president. You're not here? Okay, now I should speak louder. Yeah. So Maharaj, first time he met the devotees in 1970 in New Jersey. Later on, he joined ISKCON in Denver in 72. And then ever since, almost 50 plus years, he's been practicing Krishna consciousness. He's served in New Vrindavan, he's traveled around the world. He's also author of a couple of books. And we have to have some books, all books, whatever we bought it yesterday, has been taken out in the home program yesterday. We bought extra books, those who didn't get it yesterday, so they can get it today. Like in Maharaj of the sign. It's a $6. Maharaj will talk about the principles of Varnashram Dharma today from based on the book from Prabhupada teachings. So Maharaj is also initiating spiritual master. Right now he's spending more time in Europe, Lithuania, and then Croatia and London. And also he travels. So he's very famous for his dance enthusiasm, and then he's very spontaneous and very down to earth. So thank you very much. And I will request those sitting on the chairs, if they sit behind in the last row, those who come later, they can sit in the front row. And also the devotees, we can move forward. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
It's nice to be back here. We spent years here. There's beautiful stories connected with these things. We adored it, Heidi, we were. We had a temple in Kent, Ohio. And meetings were there one at a time. So the temple was having a lot of trouble. So it was more like a preaching center, but it was a pretty big preaching center. And they decided to close it. So nobody knew what to do with the devotees. So people had their plans, but I had my plan too. So I kidnapped the devotees. I hid them in the closet, and we brought them here. So if anybody wants to blame me for kidnapping, I did it. So yeah, that's the reason I came here. They had other plans to take a good attachment for myself, but I didn't want to bring the code. So don't get excited about that too much. But anyway, that's a little history. So there's a beautiful verse which kind of illustrates what Srila Prabhupada's mission is as we are in the present and also in the future. So this verse is from the 10th chapter of the first canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, verse number 4, Departure of Lord Krishna from Dwarka. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Kaman Vavarsha Parjanya Sarva Kama Dukamahi Shishichu Samvajangavam Asyo Yodya Vatir Buddha Kaman Varvasa Parjanya Sarva Kama Dukamahi Sisichu Smavrajangava Payo Sodhyavatir Muda. Anybody want to chant?
Kamam Vavarsa Parjanya Sarvakama Dukamahi Krishna Parjanya Haya Soda Vatir Buddha
Anyone else? Anyone else? Kaman, everything needed. Vavarsa was showered. Parjanya, rains. Sarva, everything. Kama, necessities. Dukkha, producer. Mahi, the land. Sisichu Sma, moisten. Vrajan, pasturing grounds. Gava, the cow. Payasya Udavasti, due to swollen milk bags. Buddha, because of a joyful attitude. Translation: during the reign of Maharaj Yudhisthira, the clouds showered all the water that people needed, and the earth produced all the necessities of man in profusion. Due to its fatty milk bag and cheerful attitude, the cow used to moisten the grazing ground with milk. Purport is quite lengthy, so please listen up. The basic principle of economic development is centered on land and cows. The necessity of human society are food grains, fruits, milk, minerals, clothing, wood, etc. One requires all these items to fulfill the material needs of the body. Certainly, one does not require flesh or fish or iron tools and machinery. During the reign of Maharaj Yudhisthira all over the world, there were regulated rainfalls. Rainfalls are not in the control of the human being. The heavenly king Indradev is the controller of the rain, and he is the servant of the Lord. When the Lord is obeyed by the king and the people under the king's administration, there are regulated rains from the horizon, and these rains are the cause of varieties of production on the land. Not only do regulated rains help ample production of grains and fruits, but when they combine with astronomical influences, there is an ample production of valuable stones and pearls. Grains and vegetables can sumptuously feed a man, an animal, and the fatty cow delivers enough milk to supply a man sumptuously with vigor and vitality. If there's enough milk, enough grains, enough fruit, enough cotton, enough silk, and enough jewels, then why do people need cinemas, houses of prostitution, slaughterhouses, etc.? What is the need of an artificial, luxurious life of cinema, car, radio, flesh, and hotels? Has this civilization produced anything but quarreling individually and nationally? Has the civilization enhanced the cause of equality and fraternity by sending thousands of men into a hellish factory and a war fields at the whims of a particular man? It is said here that the cow used to moisten the pasturing land with milk because the milk bag was fatty and the animals were joyful. Do they not require, therefore, proper protection for a joyful life by being fed with a sufficient quantity of grass in the field? Why should men kill cows for their selfish purposes? Why should man not be satisfied with grains, fruits, and milk, which combined together can produce hundreds of thousands of palatable dishes? Why are there slaughterhouses all over the world to kill innocent animals? Maharaj Parikshit, grandson of Maharaj Yudhisthira, while touring the vast kingdom, saw a black man attempting to kill a cow. The king at once arrested the butcher and chastised him sufficiently. Should not a king or executive head protect the lives of poor animals who are not unable to defend themselves? Is this humanity? Were not the animals of a country also citizens? Then why are they allowed to be butchered in organized slaughterhouses? Are these the signs of equality, fraternity, and nonviolence? Therefore, in contrast with the modern, advanced, civilized form of government, an autocracy like Maharaj Yudhisthira is far superior to a so-called democracy in which the animals are killed and a less than animal man is allowed to vote for another less than animal man. We are creatures of material nature. The Bhagavad Gita said that the Lord himself is the seed-giving Father, and material nature is the mother of all living beings in all shapes. Thus, Mother Material Nature has enough foodstuffs both for the animals and for the man, and by the grace of the Father Almighty, Sri Krishna, the human being is the elder brother of all living beings. He is endowed with intelligence more powerful than animals for realizing the course of nature and the indications of the Almighty Father. Human civilizations should depend on the production of material nature without artificially attempting economic development to turn the world into chaos of artificial greed and power only for the purpose of artificial luxuries and sense gratification. This is but the life of dogs and hogs. Om Agyan Timirandasya Gunajana Sakanya Chaksu Unnamitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Imamne Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaudamani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavari Pasyatya Desikarine Vanchakopa Tubhesya Kripa Sindhu Vacha Vikanam Bhagavengyo Vaishnavengyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasati Gaura Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Shri Radhanath Bharat Ki. So, there was a survey taken not so long ago, maybe about 10, 15 years ago. It's interesting. The topic was necessities as opposed to luxuries. And it was a percentage type of compilation. And it went back to the year 1850. In the year 1850, 95% of the things that were available on the common market were considered to be necessities, and 5% were luxuries. In the year 2005, which was around the time they did the survey, 95% of things on the market were luxury, 5% was necessity. So we've made so much advancement, if you want to look at it that way. So what we see here, and as Srila Prabhupada is pointing out, is that God has given us a way to live along with the process of developing our relationship with Him. And the way to live is also based on what is called nature. Nature, you take the word nature, and you also find another word that is very similar to that, called natural. So what is natural is also given by nature, and what is nature gives something which is natural to living beings, not only humans, but all of them. So we live in a particular world where it's controlled by a small group of people who are more or less interested in amassing large amounts of power, control, wealth at the expense of the rest of the world's population. And they've created a civilization, as it says here, where a few men gain and everyone else has to work in such a way as just for the basic livelihood. Enter into various types of arduous and soul-killing type of industries and activities, mills, factories, various types of hard labor in order to create a kind of lifestyle that's conducive to economic gain for a few people and exploitation for the rest. And what is that economic gain? It's another form of artificial, and that is called money. Money, everything centers around money. If you have money, you can do things. If you have money, you can get things. If you have money, you can control others. If you have money, then you are considered to be successful. So, but we understand that there's success is not based on what you have, but who you are. In other words, it's not about what you have or what you've gained. It's about your nature, your character, your qualities, you as a person. So those who develop what we say good qualities, they are considered to be, at least by scriptures and by God, people who are more advanced in the human form of life. And those who use those good qualities to serve the Lord, they are considered to be successful towards the actual goal of life, which is Prema Pumarta Maha, to develop our relationship with Krishna. So in that understanding, a lifestyle is conducive to developing that relationship with Krishna, where it's not based on exploitation, or it's not based on unnecessary activities. And that is simple living, high thinking. Prabhupada called it simple living, high thinking. In other words, live according to need, not according to greed. But you can't do that because the society has structured everything in such a way that unless you adopt that, you have to go outside of the norm in order to live and also be marginalized. So in order for people to live their life, they have to compromise values. They have to compromise their good qualities in order to work in such a way as to get economic gain. Otherwise, you are considered to be, not only considered to be, you have to struggle to keep up with the economic growth. So it's a complete artificial way of living. So what do we need as an individual? Prabhupada makes the point here in this particular thing. He said we need food, grains, milk, products, clothing, wood. And Prabhupada he said 50% before he left, he said 50% of my mission is still yet to be done. He called it Vanashram. Establishing what is called Daivi Vanashram, not just Vanashram. Daivi means spiritual. Vanashram means uh, categorizing people according to their nature, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Chatuvarne Manashtrista Guna Karma Vibhagasyaha. That there are 4 classes of living beings in the human form of life, and they're categorized accordingly. Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras. And each has a particular nature, it's called Swadharma. Just like our essential nature is Sanatana Dharma, or spiritual. We are part and parcel of Krishna, and we have a loving, eternal loving relationship with Krishna, which is never lost. Even if you change bodies millions of times, that relationship is still there. So that's eternal, Sanatana Dharma. Swadharma is our material characteristics that come by way of our karma in the accumulation of our previous lives. And it manifests in the present life in a certain way. And there are these 4 categories. There are people who are naturally have the inclination for spiritual leadership and for spiritual guidance. We call them the Brahmanas. There's people who have the natural inclination to manage, to protect, to give in charity to others in a way that people can fulfill their basic material needs. They're called kshatriyas, organizers, managers, people who are protectors, people who in the material world they somehow have that tendency, they join military forces or they become police officers, or they want to become managers of big companies, or even we see it on the spiritual level, they climb to the top to become temple presidents. It's not exactly a good analogy, but anyway. There's some indicate. And then, of course, you have the Vaishyas. Vaishyas are food producers. They till the land, they protect cows, animals, and they also do commerce, banking, and they also, what is the other one? They also give in charity. And then you have what is called Sudras. Sudras are those who are simply assisting the other 3 classes. They're workers. And they're also good at arts and crafts, but their basic principle is they have to work under someone. They cannot be independent. The Brahmins, the Kshatriyas, and the Vaishyas to some degree can be independent in their occupation. The Sudras have to be dependent on working for the other classes. Now you might say, well, how does that work in our present situation? Because the scriptures say, Kalo Sudra Sambhavan, which means that in this age, everyone is born more or less Sudra. So everyone needs training and education. So there is a process by which you can bring out those qualities, and that is called awakening one's natural swadharma through a process of evaluation and a process of activity, and based on a certain type of education. And in that education, then one who is in a position of a Brahmin will observe, well, this person has Brahminical tendencies, qualities that can be engaged that way. This person has tendencies towards management, towards protection. They are somewhat independent in how they do things. They're also thinkers, and these people are generally kshatriyas. And they have a martial spirit about them too. And then they have the Vaishyas, of course, we mentioned their qualities also. So all of these other three varnas can be reawakened or understood through a process of evaluation based on education. And then, in order to engage them, because then we have to see how to engage persons like that. And so we have what is called Daivira. So Prabhupada said, I haven't been able to establish this part of my mission. He said 50% of my mission remains incomplete. We have to establish this Daivira ashram. And then the whole world will change to go towards Krishna consciousness. And so Prabhupada started holy books, holy names, Sankirtan movement, distributing transcendental knowledge to the society through his books. And then he opened temples around the world, Hare Krishna temples, other temples. And so we're probably one of the biggest spiritual movements in the world with the most temples, maybe outside of Christians who have so many churches. So we have temples all around the world. Prabhupada was very, very enthusiastic to establish temples, establish worship of the deity, and invite people to understand deeper their relationship with Krishna through this process of temple worship. And then the third thing he also did it's called the Harijana. He made people who were unqualified into qualified Brahmins through the process of Krishna consciousness education. So these three principles were based on Gandhi's movement when Gandhi was here in order to establish Gandhi wanted to do it based on the idea of living in the villages and also dividing people according like that. So Prabhupada followed that, but then he said the last part of my mission we haven't been able to develop. He said we have to develop these farms. Because he said this varnashram system can only be developed in the farm communities. In the cities, it's not possible. And so he asked us to, and so you can see in his books here, he points out the superiority of the lifestyle, which is also important because it's conducive to Krishna consciousness. It's conducive to Krishna consciousness, a more simplified lifestyle based on protecting the cows, having cows. Cows are the miracle gift that Krishna has given to the human society. They're not just simply animals. They're actually, it says, all of the demigods reside in the body of the cow. The cow dung itself is considered to be none different than Lakshmi Devi. And the cow produces everything auspicious for the upliftment of the human society. Obviously, we all know she produces milk. And Prabhupada explains milk taking in a certain quantity, not too much, not too little, nourishes the finer brain tissues, which makes it more easier to understand philosophical and spiritual principles. Milk is a very miracle food. Prabhupada said it's also the miracle food for babies and old men. Even if you're in between, you can still take it. The vegan movement has some value in the sense that because of the exploitation of cows, they want to do away with the whole idea. But we want to do away with the exploitation of cows. And Prabhupada mentions that. What is the use of these slaughterhouses? There's no benefit for anyone. And to take these animals who are the foundation to a healthy human society and simply kill them in order to enjoy, to make a lot of economic development based on that, not only to make money, is simply a society that is simply exploiting living entities for greed and for sense gratification. That's all. There's no reason for that. And if you study the history, you'll find that the wars that we find out around the world are due to cow killing. It's directly related. It's not something that you're trying to connect the dots to find out. Even some of the greatest philanthropists in history, such as George Bernard Shaw, even he wrote about how the slaughter of cows actually leads to wars. And that's a fact because whenever innocent living entities are killed in an organized way by that particular country, that country has to sacrifice its young men into the war fields as a response to the vicious karma that is caused by the killing of cows. The Shastras explain something very interesting, which probably you're not aware of. It says the killing of a cow is the equal of the killing of the cow is the equal of killing two men. And Krishna explains that there are five types of people, five categories of people who require protection throughout their life. And he mentions the five, it's in the verse. Women, children, the elderly, Brahmins, and cows. Each one of these five are dependent. And he explains, in that, Prabhupada explains that out of these five, the two that are giving most important in terms of giving protection because they established the society is Brahmins and cows. Brahminical vision gives direction to the society, and the cows actually stabilize people's life and also provide everything they need in terms of the necessities of life. And then Prabhupada goes on to say, based on understanding, he said, out of these two, the most important is the cows, even above the Brahmins. How important the cows is impossible to understand because we live in a car culture instead of a cow culture. We're more interested in our cars because it's the way the society has organized it, so we accept it. But when you understand how, just like cow dung alone, people who came from India, many of you maybe also had your personal experiences. You take cow dung, you mix it with paddy, and then you dry it out, and you can use it for cooking. So you have your fuel for cooking. And Prabhupada explained, cow dung cooking is first class. Wood is second class. Gas is third. You know what the fourth one is. Turn on your electrical stove. I don't know what it's called. It's called polluting the environment. We're actually, instead of polluting the environment, by using what the environment has given us for our livelihood, we're actually putting things back into the environment for the benefit of the environment, as opposed to raping the environment in order to live. So you can see the dichotomy between a more natural lifestyle and what we are called today's modern civilization. You can also take cow dung, make it into methane, and then you can use it for heating. Also, you can heat your homes with this. All you need is a little machine to transform that cow dung into methane gas, and it's good for heating. And you can do away with your gas bills. So, and of course, when the cows walk on the fields, their hooves actually fertilize the ground, which makes the ground fertile for agriculture. So we can go through the whole list. And then, of course, cow products such as milk, ghee, what else? Cow dung, cow urine. Well, yeah, that's a product also. Yeah, are used in the worship of the deity. We put cow urine on the deity, and we also take cow dung, mix it with water, and we use it to bathe the deity also. So how auspicious is cow? I mean, you can't touch the deity unless you're actually clean, but you can put cow dung and cow urine on it. So it shows you how pure the cow. Everything about the cow is auspicious. In some of our temples around the world, especially in India, they've created a whole series of items based on the cow. In one of our temples, we have over 40 products just coming from the cow. I saw something really amazing one time, and this was done on our farm in Belgaum, where they had a clock, a regular clock, and they had two leads, you know, electrical leads coming off the clock, and then they had two little tiny pots which had cow dung and cow yarn in it. They put the leads in it, and the clock was working. Wow. Yeah, I saw that, so it's not some imagination. So this is, we have a very little understanding, unless we're involved directly, just to understand how beneficial the cow and what she provides. And of course, the bull is also there to till the field. But the bull has been more marginalized than the cow. They take the cow nowadays and they bring him to these various dairies and they squeeze out as much milk as they can from it. Then when the cow, after 5 years, is no longer able to produce it, they send it to the slaughterhouses. But a cow can give milk practically her whole life if she's taken care of nicely. So it's not about cow protection, it's about cow care and using what the cow has been given by God for our livelihood. So these are just some of the examples. And of course, ghee, yogurt. Ghee is so healthy. You go to India, you go to the various Ayurvedic clinics, you want some treatment, they give you ghee. You drink ghee, and that's part of some of the medical treatments just by drinking regular ghee. Of course, it has to be done according with a certain prescribed way of providing that, and that's how beneficial ghee is. Ghee tastes so nice, makes food taste very nice. Yogurt, milk. The cow is God's gift to human society for establishing life. And in the Bhagavad Gita, in this same canto, first canto, towards the end, explains that human society flourishes on three principles: protection and care of the cows, a culture that is directed by spiritual principles, in other words, Brahminical principles, and worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Makes it complete. It covers both the basic needs of the individual, the direction by which the individual can progress both materially and especially spiritually, and ultimately that it provides what we say the opportunity to go back home, back to God. So then Prabhupada got right down to it. He said, we have to establish these farm communities. And the basic principle is, he said, grow your own food. He said, what you grow on your own land is 100 times more nutritious than what you were buying in the stores. If you've tasted the difference, you'll understand that statement. Not only nutritious, but also much more tasty also. He said, grow your own food. He said, make your own cloth. Grow cotton, silk, and you can make so many nice types of, things that you need to wear. Also, things that are also quite, what's the word? Decorative. It's not just a plain cutting. It's more like you can also make them. Silk. Silk comes from a plant, cotton, also. Jute, all of these things, they're all made from clothes. And then he said, learn the science of herbology and make your own medicines. This is interesting. Forget about doctors. You don't need them. Just close the hospitals, let the doctors come to the farms. You don't need it. If you know the science of herbology, all the cures for every disease is in nature. You just have to know how to extract. It's all there. And also healthful living is also. Is this a doctor looking at me? No. Okay. I was thinking that was crazy last day. Oh, okay. We love you, don't we? But God has, just like I was in New Taliban, and there's one devotee there, his name is Dewey Buja. He's created this little business, and it's called Blue Boy Herbs. And I was there with him, and he was taking me around the forest in the Taliban area in New Orleans. And he was showing me the different plants. He said, this is for this disease, this is for this, this is for this. He had studied it, learned it very carefully. So everything is in nature. It's all there. You just have to bring it out. And you don't have to, instead of paying big, expensive medical bills. Because God has provided everything. Prabhupada tells also his own personal story. He had a toothache one time, and it was so bad. He was going to the family, the different dentists, and they couldn't do anything for him. So then he went to some man in the village, he was living in the forest, some Kavi Raj. And he looked at the tooth. He took this herb, put it on the side of the cheek, and by doing that, all of the germs came out of the tooth. The tooth was completely healed, because it's just because it's built up of toxics and germs. So everything is there in nature. And the idea is that we work so hard to get the things that we need in order to maintain ourselves when everything is being provided by God. It's already there. All you have to do is live in that environment, of course, and that's what Prabhupada is saying here. And the last thing he said, build your own homes. Build your own homes. You don't have to use cut trees. So many trees are dead, so many trees fall. You can collect wood. It's like I was at New Vrindavan, and we were cooking from wood. I lived in New Vrindavan for years, and we only cooked with wood. We heated with wood. We did everything with wood, and we didn't cut trees. Wood was available. Many of the trees some were dead, the branches, and then the wood. All you had to do was go into the forest and collect it. We had everything we needed. And you see, just like there's one group called the Amish. You've heard of that, right? Yeah. I went to visit them along with the Minister of Cow Protection in ISKCON in 2019. And we spent 8 hours with them. From 6 to 8 hours we were there, asking them all the questions about their lifestyle. And basically, if they want a house built, the community gets together and they can build a house in 1 or 2 days. They can build a barn in 3 days. And they don't have any electricity. They don't have any cars. They don't have any of that. They live basically off the land like that. And they also worship the Lord. They follow a Christian tradition also that's coming out of Germany. We found that out. So these are more. So I'm not saying you should, run back to the farms right now, but I'm saying Prabhupada said this is the future. He said, I just finished a book. It's called Krishna's Ways, Natural Living. I had 25 copies. That's all I had left after selling most of them. And we sold 12 of them last night in one program. Now I have 13 copies left. But in there's a QR code towards the back of the book. And if you scan your phone on that QR code, you can hear Prabhupada speaking. And he said, this civilization will collapse. He says, why? Because it's based on a false principle. It's based on money. Money is not a foundation for human development. It's for the exploitation of the few, by the few, for many. And he showed that so many different ways. So now you have this beautiful land, and you're going to build that temple. And you have to see what you can do with the rest of that land. So keeping cows, agriculture, and it's also a place for children. Children don't have any place nowadays. We have to somehow find a place for them. And it's always being exposed to so many negative elements. They don't grow up in an environment where they get proper education. They learn all kinds of things about how to, commit sinful activities. Fortunately, because they are devotee, if they're devotee children, they get to care of the culture and tradition. But people, you'll see kids grow up and now they're not very healthy, and at the same time they're taught that sense gratification and is actually the means by which you can become happy in the world. The more sense gratification you have, the more you'll be happy. The more money you have, the more you're successful. This is completely contrary to Krishna's plan for developing the human society. It's contrary. So, and Prabhupada also makes a nice point here. Maybe you picked it up in what he says. Here he says, where is it? Not only do regulated rains help ample production of grains and fruits, but when they combine with astronomical influences, there is ample production of valuable stones and pearls. So what does that actually mean? There's a particular constellation that comes up occasionally. It's called Swati. When Swati constellation comes in the cosmological scene, if it rains at that time, when the rain comes on the head of a snake, it turns into jewels. And when rain comes onto an elephant, it also turns into various gems. And when it goes into the ocean, it turns into pearls. And that's what the oysters get. So just by this astrological constellation and the rain that comes during that time, so the whole environment is filled with gems and jewels. So Krishna's provided everything. So we wonder where that stuff comes from. Coming from Krishna through nature. Okay. So we don't have to. There's no scarcity in Krishna's arrangement. The scarcity is simple activity, which we don't need anyway. And so there's different ways to see that. So I'm encouraging devotees to look forward to this type of lifestyle in the future for not only for our movement, but for the world. And there's an uprising in the world amongst the secular society to move towards that type of lifestyle. Because people are pretty much been burnt out by the way we live now. Just like, I don't know, many professionals or workers, but in the UK, which I spend a lot of time, 45% of a person's paycheck goes to taxes. Is that high here also? A little less. Yeah. And if you earn over 100,000 pounds a year, it's 50%. So if you earn 100,000 pounds a year, 50% goes to taxes. 50%. And 45% is an annual paycheck cut. Yeah, you just ask anybody who works in the UK, they'll tell you. So the government wants to take everything. That's the way they are. And that's the feature of the Kali Yuga. As it's explained, the governments will be infested with people who are simply greedy and want to get as much personal profit from their positions and exploit the citizens at the same time. Even the Mahabharata explains that very directly in many stories. So this lifestyle, which can be nicely adopted here, even in Columbus, and you have a good start already. Maybe bring in cows and agriculture. And agriculture is first, even before cow protection, because agriculture can feed everyone, including the animals. Prabhupada says the animals will eat what you don't eat. It will produce enough for everyone. And you can take care of the animals also. So yeah, as far as the need is concerned, even if you don't have to buy so much hay, produce so many fields full of grass. That's also there in the proper weather time. But outside of that, whatever the humans can produce can also be taken by the animals. So this is a natural lifestyle. It's Krishna's way. And we might say, oh my God, what happens to my computer? What happens to my cell phone? You can still, these devices can be also still used, but not like we use it now. We become addicted to these things. I've seen people, I was giving a lecture in Northeastern University in Boston a couple of years ago. And most of the students that came to the lecture, there was about 50 students there. Most of them were from India. They were exchange students that had come there to get their diploma there. And so I was there. We were talking about the hazards of cell phones. That was the topic. And so we kind of pressed it a little bit, made it pretty strong. Because if you hold it up to your ear, it's actually proven it can cause brain damage and especially cancer also. Especially if you use it on the right ear. That's already proven. I've seen signs in India when I've been traveling around. If you have sicknesses due to overuse of electronic devices, we can help you. Yeah. And so India is also way ahead of the West in all of these problems because they just really went for it. And so there's so many health problems because of electronic devices. So at the end of the lecture, one young man came up to me, nice boy, and he said, Swamiji, if I don't have my cell phone for 6 minutes, I go crazy. And he was emotional when he was talking. He wasn't just speaking like this. And I was thinking, my God, is it that bad? And he was serious. And when people have become so over-infatuated with electronic devices that they minimize their relationships with others and maximize their relationship with these electronic devices. But relationships, you can't have a relationship with something inanimate. Relationships you are with others who are also alive. These things are not alive. They're just a combination of electronic parts put it together in a certain way. It's quite ingenious how they've come up with all these electronic devices. Technology is quite amazing what they have done with technology, but the way they use it is for exploitation, and the way it's overused also. We have nothing against that. We can see that there is a lifestyle that is more conducive to the practice of spiritual life and to living nicely. And that's what's being said here. This is one verse that Prabhupada really emphasizes. If you skim through the Bhagavatam, you find many other verses that Prabhupada says the same thing. He's going to get these forms, live simply, plant your own food, live happily. You don't even have to work the whole year. After you learn how to manage these things, you can work for a few months a year and have enough resources to live for the entire year. It's all there in nature. Because the human life is not meant to work. It's meant to adato brahma jigyasa. It's meant to reawaken our spiritual relationship with Krishna. But the problem is with Western civilization's style of living, we have no time for Krishna. We don't have any time because we're too busy in other areas of life. And therefore, we have to somehow squeeze it in when it comes to actually devoting our spiritual life. But a more conducive lifestyle, and it has to be done in community. It can't be done by individuals. I mean, a few families can get together and do something, but when it's done in community, then you have two things. You can share resources and you can share labor. People can produce accordingly, and then wherever there's a need, there can be an exchange, and same with labor. So everything is there in nature. And so I'm pushing this because it's Prabhupada's program. And Prabhupada also said something. He said, this civilization that is now, he said, it will not last. It will collapse, he said it in 1973. He said in 50 years it will be finished. So 1973 and 50 is what? 2023. Haribol. You're in the midst of watching this civilization collapse. So this happened. Some countries are really, really going down fast. I mean, tremendous. The United States is also going down fast, but they're trying to hide it. You'll see that also. And Prabhupada predicted it because he said it's based on a false foundation. Money is not a stabilizing principle in human society. What is stabilizing is morality, aesthetic values, ultimately spiritual values. These are stabilizing things which are necessary for human development. Not hard working in order to get some piece of paper which is useless when the government says we don't back it anymore. Prabhupada gives a whole lecture. You should listen to it. So it's December 31st, 1973, the falsity of paper money. It's what it is. It's paper. That's all it is. The government says it's good, then it's good. The government says it's not good, it's no good. Is that relevant? That's not wealth. That's some kind of, say, marginalization of the idea that you have some wealth. How much paper you have. Real wealth is land, cows, precious metals. This is wealth. And you see the people who are at the top, they've gathered all of the precious metals in the world. You can't even get it anymore. They bought it all up and they're hoarding it. Now gold is almost going up to $2,000 an ounce. Because they know real wealth is precious metals, emeralds, rubies, diamonds, gold, silver, and of course, one thing you don't hear much, lapis lazuli. That's also a very valuable gem and is no longer available on this earth. So yeah, these are things that are provided by God. You can decorate your wife with it. You can have nice gems. Now, ladies have plastic. It's called jewelry. It's all synthetic. If you have to buy nice jewelry, it costs so much money. You can't even get it. If you find it, it's like half your year's payable for. And now we have plastic. Instead of people used to eat on gold plates, now we eat on paper plates. And styrofoam. So when you look at the comparison to Vedic civilization and how it's progressed, and Prabhupada said all of this has only happened in the last 200 to 300 years. Before that, people lived longer, healthier, and more in tune with nature. It's just the last 200 to 300 years that this society has been moved to this industrialization and the exploitation of human beings by making them work so hard, giving them a piece of paper, and say, "Here, you're rich." You might say, "Well, it has some value." It does, but only by the conditions of the government. It's like what Mr. Modi did a couple of years ago, 2017-16. He pulled all of the thousand note things and he said, "That's it. The thousand note is no longer. If you have it, you can cash it in." But people, because he understood there was a lot of black market, they were duplicating this money. So in order to stop that, he's going to do it again. It's in the process right now. You don't find the 2000 thing floating so much in people's common transactions. The banks in India have been told, don't, if it comes, keep it. Don't bring it back into. And I've been told by people who know he's about to do it again with the 2000. So spend those 2000s. That's why you see the 500 is so popular now, because the 2000s are being pulled back. So that just shows you, that's an example that what money is valuable is what the government says it's valuable. If it's not, then it's what it is, paper. I was in India at the time when that happened, and people were burning the money. They were putting it in piles and just burning it because they couldn't cash it in. The banks for some places weren't giving any exchange because they couldn't prove that they had earned the money. Yeah. So I don't want to scare anybody, but anyway, look at the reality that what the Vedas say, what the Srimad Bhagavatam says, is more natural and it's to the conducive of success both in material life and in spiritual life. Not this artificial civilization that is based on exploitation. That's all it is. And so basically what I'm saying is develop these farms. Develop these farms. And you'll see, and Prabhupada said, every city temple should have a farm community connected with it. And he said, then you can grow grains, milk products, fruits, vegetables, bring them to the city temples, open a restaurant in the city temples, and invite people to come and get a nice experience with eating. And he said, the quality of this type of food will bring people back to our movement. They'll taste something very wonderful. So, yeah. And it's not that I'm advocating we close the city temples, but Prabhupada said the farms are generally for the grihastas, for those who have family or children. They can live on the farms because they're not so mobile. The sannyasis and the brahmacharis, they can live in the cities and they can preach. They can go to the farms occasionally. So we still want to keep, the city temples active, but we also need every city temple should have a farm community where devotees can go and live and others can visit and also learn how to live according to Krishna's way. I left a lot of this out because it's a very big topic. There's a lot more we can speak about that. But, and that we're not getting so much support from the society in order to build this, but devotees are doing it on their own. And there's many places that have come up and have successfully developed Srila Prabhupada's vision for simple living and Krishna consciousness. Okay, so Hare Krishna. Any questions? Comments? Yes?
Thank you so much for your talk. Important topic to talk about it. Really like focus on personal experience. I have a farm in Arkansas, and like you said, it's fully in alignment with everything you said. And like how you said, groceries are doing it like because of the talk.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're doing. It's not just myself, but also a couple other young people. And it's really great if well to that very very awesome. Earth over here and the growth. So much different parts here. But I just wanted to like extend if anyone like to connect with me, I like offer any kind of help or advice. You can do this for me years now. Don't have to you're like how the very much just like the process of the development.
Is it Krishna conscious program?
Yeah, it's very big, very simple right now, but
For those of you in the back, if you catch all of that, she has a farm, this young lady here, in Arkansas, and they're also doing that that vision of Srila Prabhupada, simple living, agriculture, development like that. And she's offering her advice and also invitation for anyone. So, yeah, because we can't, the best way to understand it is to see it. When you see it in action, then you know it actually works and you can see the benefits from it. So we should take some time to visit these communities that are actually in action and also maybe spend some time there and get an idea of what it's like to live in that environment. I think many of you who have grown up in India also came from that kind of background. So you have some understanding of village life, of agriculture, cow protection, and that experience can be used, to help grow the Prabhupada's programs here. Because Prabhupada was very adamant, saying that this is the future. If we don't do this, we'll find ourselves in a very difficult situation in order to survive people.
Definitely, as Maharaj said, if we have some plans, then the few temples coming in 50 acres of the land, organic garden, garden, goods and all this. It's in the pipeline. Right now, we put in the back burner, but plans are there.
Okay. Anyone else? Any other questions, comments? Okay. I brought some books. Unfortunately, I only have 13 copies left. So if you want to get a little broader idea of this whole idea, this whole scheme, you can get a copy of the book.
And Maharaj also can sign it. Sure.
And if you can't pay $6, you can pay $5. If you can't pay $5, you can just give whatever you can. We just more or less we want to get. And on the back, there's a very nice statement. Over this way here. Well, there's a couple. I'm trying. I have a supply in London. I'm trying to get it over here, so I haven't got here yet. So I'll have more books available within a few weeks, hopefully.
So,
Do you have any extra rings? Diamond rings?
Maharaj will take diamond, gold also. Beautiful answer.
I'll have to accept paper money.
Okay. So later on, you can give the money to Maharaj directly, or you can give it to Padmaka Prabhu. He can collect it. Those who take the books, so he can collect it. And then now we'll end the program here. Now Gaurati is done. We'll chant Hare Krishna.
There's one more book actually.
Signature. There's no signature.
Alright.